Peace and Black Power family. This is your host, Raheem Shabazz, and I am here for another episode of Necessary Blackness Podcast. And today we have a special guest in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Our special guest has appeared on Oprah, Steve Harvey, The Breakfast Club, as well as Trevor Noah. And our special guest has made appearance all over the internet for her viral video. Our special guest today is no other than Kimberly Jones. What up, Kimberly?
Hey, as my grandma used to say, every day above ground is a good day.
All right. Now today we are going to talk about why the contract is broken and void. And we also going to talk about your book, How Can We Win?, which gives us a breakdown of the economic and social injustice facing black people. And it talks about how marginalized citizens are relegated to the bottom rung of society.
Correct.
Because of their economic status and a lot of times because of their skin color.
This is true.
So we're going to talk about that. But before we discuss your book, I want you to tell us about the making of Kimberly Jones and what was your childhood like and who was some of the elders growing up that inspired you?
It's interesting because probably my biggest influence was my mother. My mother was a phenomenally educated, brilliant woman, and I got to watch firsthand how the world did people like her dirty. My mother was one of the original waitresses at the Playboy Mansion. She left working for Hef and went on to work for Sears, and eventually she worked her way up at Sears to when they built the Sears Tower. She started working there before they built the Sears Tower in the 60s. And when they built the Sears Tower, they made her the supervisor of the mailroom, and that mailroom was inefficient. And so, mail back then, the 60s and 70s, that's the only way people got communication. So mail might come in on Monday. You might not get it till Friday because it's the tallest office building in the world. By the time her team sorted it, got it upstairs, it could take days. And so my mother worked with some engineers at Bell and Howell and was a pioneer in AI. She programmed it, and Bell and Howell built it. She built a robot that delivered the mail in the Sears Tower so she could use all of her staff just to sort. They would load the robots. They kind of looked like big file machines that moved throughout the building, and they knew which floors they were on and everything. And they took the patent from my mother. My mother never got paid for that creation. And we still lived in the wild hundreds on the south side of Chicago in the hood.
Wow.
And so it's like seeing that firsthand, looking at how brilliant a woman my mother was, and just so many other incidents like that happened to her throughout her lifetime. And towards the end, I'm going to be very honest, before my mother passed, my mother was a very broken and bitter woman. And it was because of how life treated her, despite the fact that that's a genius in the ground.
Yeah. And so that you come from greatness, someone that was a genius. And I know seeing her go through strife and everything, it built you for who you are today.
For sure. Yeah.
Award-winning author. And speaking of your activism, you have on a shirt. And your shirt says Jamarion Robinson.
Right.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's how you say
Jamarion Robinson. And what's ironic about that is the first time that I physically met you, it was at a protest.
Yeah.
For the young man. And for those that don't know, Jamarion Robinson is a young man that lived in Atlanta, and he had 76 bullet holes in him.
Yep.
And out of the 76, 59 was entry wounds, and 17 was exit wounds. And this was done by the state-sanctioned murder with the Atlanta Police Department. And to this day, there has been no justice for this young man.
There has been no justice. The furthest we have gotten this case, and this is after years and years of working with his mom and different organizers, the furthest we have gotten this case is we finally did get an indictment of those officers this past winter. We got an indictment, but that took 5 years.
5 years.
It took 5 years to get that indictment. And if anybody knows anything about the legal system and the law, you know the further you move away from the case, the more difficult it gets to win the case.
Absolutely.
So we have an indictment, they're going to go to trial, but it's like now we're 5 years away, from the incident. It's like witnesses don't know their stories like they did back
Evidence
then.
got destroyed.
Evidence got destroyed. It's like it's so much that has happened that's going to have a negative effect on the case at this point. And really, to me, I feel like that's by design.
Let me ask you something. Was it a federal indictment or a state indictment?
It was a state indictment.
So this district attorney that's in there now is the one that brought forth the indictment?
Right, she is.
Okay.
Yep, Fonnie Willis.
That's interesting. I thought it was a federal indictment.
No, it should be.
Absolutely.
Because I also feel like that's where we're going to get in trouble with the case, because it wasn't just the local police. It was I believe, I may not get this exactly right, but it was like the sheriff's department. It was several agencies working together on a task force that came to get him.
Yeah.
So what's going to end up happening is everybody's going to start pointing the finger. Oh, it wasn't my department, it was your department. Oh, it wasn't your department, it was my department. And I feel like that's where it's going to get murky. I want to stay positive because I want to stay positive for the family, especially for his mother, Monteria, who has been a warrior in fighting for her son. But it's like these little kind of like tricks of the game are where these cases get murky.
But just like with anything else, once fingers start getting pointed, no one's going to want to take the blame, and they're going to start telling on each other, and that's when the truth is going to come out, because someone shot that young man, and I actually went to the crime scene, and they still had the bullets in the floorboard.
Right.
So they stood over him and shot in there, and it was just sad, to see the blood-soaked rug and the blood on the wall, and you could see where they dragged his body down the steps. Yeah. We dealing with spiritual wickedness in high places.
No, and that's very, very real. And to your point, that's what helped get the indictment that one of the officers flipped. One of the officers flipped
and said he couldn't. He said, "I can't go through this. I got to tell.
I got to tell the truth. Got to tell the truth."
Well, telling the truth, I want you to tell the truth as you always do, and we're gonna talk about your book. And it's crazy because we always bump into each other, right? I want to let y'all know that she's not just an activist. I seen you out at community functions. I seen you out at protests. And most times you only see activists at protests.
Right.
But I seen you at grand openings of black businesses.
Yes.
So you are very involved in the culture here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So your book, How to Win. Tell me a little bit about your book and what gave you the idea to write this book.
So after the video went viral, and the theme of the video was how can we win? And I said that out of a point of frustration of saying, with so much stacked against us, like, how can we win? Like, we can't win. The game is fixed. So when I went back and later, as I was sitting down and thinking about it, and publishers were reaching out to me, asking me to write a book to continue the conversation from the video, I was like, what I don't want to give my people is more hopelessness. Because I don't like people who sell hopelessness. Because if you convince people to be hopeless, a hopeless man won't move. A hopeless man won't do anything. A hopeless man will stand still because they'll throw their hands up and say, "Ain't no hope." I mean, what's the point? We ain't gonna win. So I didn't want to. I didn't want to land there. I wanted to figure out. I really sat down and I wanted to figure out ways to bring my people hope. And so that's why, even though the video is called "How Can We Win," I titled the book "How We Can Win," because I wanted to give the history of how we got here, but then at the end of the book, what I do is I give some ideas on how we can do collective community and come out of it. And so that was my point, is to educate, but also to uplift.
Community orientated, and there's always a solution, and that's what I like to hear. But what we're going to do, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. But before we wanted to go to this commercial break, I wanted to leave you with one of my favorite quotes of yours, and that is from that video, the same video we talking about, How Can We Win, where you said, "And you're lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge." But there may come a time if things doesn't go the way that it should,
Revenge ain't off the table.
Revenge ain't gonna be off the table, and there's gonna be a lot of people that choose violence. And we have a generation that's coming up, and I think this is the most fearless generation.
Oh, the Z's ain't playing.
Yeah, so you might want to be kind with them. So we're gonna take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about changing the money game that's rigged. And so we're gonna give a little insight about that, but you're gonna have to go get this book to find out the solutions and how you can implement it.
Necessary Blackness Podcast is independently owned, and we do not accept sponsorship dollars from corporations. We are supported by the people such as yourself who know that in war, the first casualty is the truth. We are at war with racism and white supremacy. We must continue to tell the truth. Support us by purchasing your Necessary Blackness t-shirt by sending an email to necessaryblacknesspodcast@gmail.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And for those that are just joining us, this is Necessary Blackness Podcast. Before we went on our commercial break, we was talking about your lovely book, How Can We Win? Race History and Changing the Money Game That's Rigged.
Right.
I want you to explain some of the economic inequalities that us as black people, as melanated people, as foundational black Americans are facing, and how can we win in this game?
Yeah, it's a ripple effect that has been going on for a while. And so, that old saying is true. If you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going.
Absolutely.
If you don't know what has happened to you, you don't know, you'll buy the narrative about yourself that you're lazy, that you're a bum, that you just don't try, why other communities move here and get ahead and we don't. There's a reason people want you to buy that narrative. And part of it is what we're even seeing in schools. They don't want to teach the real history of what happened to us, because if they taught the real history of what happened to us, people would be empathetic towards our situation and really get up and change. See, they want to always go back to, well, slavery was so long ago, but the ripple effects of slavery are still here.
Absolutely.
And you don't even have to go back that far. I mean, redlining had us in a chokehold until the 60s.
Absolutely.
Which means that's our parents' generation. You know what I'm saying? That's not a whole lot of generations removed. They don't want to talk about the fact that between the 1920s and the 1960s, or was it the 50s? The 1920s, no, it was the 60s. The 1920s and the 1960s, the U.S. government underwrote $200 billion in home lending, and 98% of that went to white America. So while they were giving us the projects, they were giving them a road to home ownership, which is the quickest way to build generational wealth is by owning of a home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they built the suburbs and put out these loans for these $9,000 homes that they just basically gave to them. And then they actually I have copies of them in my house. They actually had in the mortgages saying that you could not resell these homes to blacks or Jews.
And you know what's crazy about that, right? When you look at it, right, the 1940s and 1950s with FHA, those homes that you're talking about was $10,000. Today,
$10,000.
those homes are worth $500,000.
Exactly.
So you robbed every black family of $500,000.
Exactly.
In today's time.
And then don't even get me started on redlining, where the banks actually put red lines around black communities saying they wouldn't lend in those communities to start businesses, to do remodels on the homes that they have. And don't talk to me about how our neighborhoods look bad when I see street sweepers right now to this day in upper neighborhoods like here in Atlanta and Buckhead. I ain't never see a street sweeper. There was no signs up on the poles saying street sweeping Tuesday through Thursday. Don't be on the side of the street in our community for people to take trash. And we have very transient people who are taking public transportation and buses and catching catching Ubers. So if you don't have any trash receptacles in the neighborhood, where's the trash going to go? It's going to go on the ground. And then you don't have a street sweeper come and clean up. So what does that do? Then that allows you to then make those homes less valuable, which means it makes it susceptible to gentrification, where people can come in and buy those homes at a low margin, then start building up, raise the property tax, and then the legacy residents who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who are on a fixed income can't hold on to their homes because they can't pay that property. They can't pay the property tax. But then we also don't know that you could argue your taxes. You actually have a legal right to go down to the state and argue those taxes and explain why you can't pay those taxes.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yes. So, Freedman's Bank, only one that wasn't backed up by the federal government. And they had all of these white men over that bank, and they were allowed to make bad investments and basically do whatever they wanted to do with the money, and caused our people to lose all that money to the tune of what would be the equivalent now of $66 million. And so few people were able to recoup that money.
And didn't, in the end, they joined forces with Frederick Douglass.
They wanted him to take the L.
To take the fall,
They
right?
wanted him to take the fall. And then he even invested, and this is how oblivious he was to what was happening. He invested his own money at the bank when he took it over. But by then, it was already a failed system. So don't just talk to me about what happened during enslavement. I'm talking about, I could talk to you post enslavement. And these are the things, these are the lessons that they don't want us to learn. This is the education that they don't want us to get. Because if you understand that, when you start hearing a conversation about reparations, then you won't be stuck when people's argument is, well, I didn't own slaves and you weren't a slave. It goes deeper than slavery. It goes into redlining. It goes into Freedman's Bank. It goes into that homeland and practice that they have. Right now, to this day, there was a study that was done 4 years ago that said that in black communities that are groomed and set at the same level as white communities, appraisers appraise those homes for less. There was a black couple that ran a test. Y'all could Google it and found the article that they had their home appraised, and they knew that the price that their house was appraised for wasn't good. So they went and got their white friends to pose as the homeowners and had a different appraiser from the same company. They took all their pictures down, put all of their white friends' photos up, and because it was now a white family, the appraisal on that home went up
$100 and something thousand.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is still happening right now.
Today,
that we are being economically disadvantaged. You gave us the projects and welfare and dismantled the black family, which we're still feeling the ripple effects of, and you gave them a road to generational wealth with home lending. And we're not talking, and don't even get me started on the GI Bill, the black men, the Tuskegee Airmen, the 761st Tank Battalion, who came home for World War II and didn't have access to the same GI Bills that their counterparts who fought with them have to build wealth. So this is not even just about slavery, although it is about slavery, because many companies, many of these corporations made their original money during slavery and are still making money now, and their families are still benefiting. Brooks Brothers suit, if I ever see any black man in a Brooks Brothers suit, we're going to have a problem, because Brooks Brothers suits made their original money during slavery. Yeah. If you're selling a product, you want your product to look good, so they put them in suits.
And Brooks Brothers,
who was making those suits.
Y'all better off wearing a Steve Harvey suit, man. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they put them in Brooks Brothers suits. Also, that's how you showcase your wealth. If your family came to visit you and your coachmen, the people who worked in the house, the people who served the food were dressed to the nine, who was making those suits? Brooks Brothers was making that suit. That's a corporation that's still running and thriving. Well, thank God they finally shut down a few years ago. I was so thrilled when I saw that. But they had family members making money off of that company for generations. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, woe is me. Blackness. What I'm saying is, I need you to hear that and understand that.
And that brings me to my next question, right? Because when we look at the ripple effect of what happened with slavery, we look at what's continuing to go on today. We went from Jim Crow to Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, right? So let's talk about reparations and what that actually looks like, and why is reparation like the civil rights of the 21st century?
Because I feel like, me personally, I feel like I always say at the end of that speech when I said and they lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge. I always say in that whole speech, if it was one thing I could change, I wouldn't have said equality. I would have said equity. Because I feel like the fight that we're in right now is an equity fight. Because I hate when young people be like, I'm not my ancestors. You damn right you ain't your ancestors. Because for that bus boycott, your ancestors boycotted for over 300 days. I think it was 361 days, that kind of tenacity. So you're right, we ain't our ancestors. We ain't built like them. They was built tougher than us. So you may have your view on thinking that they were subdued because of the situations they were in, but they were soldiers in the situation in which they were in. So I think we do a disservice to the Kings, to the Bayard Rustins, to all of those people to say that we're still in the fight for equality. They fought for equality. And if you want to say you don't see it, man, you're spinning words for the sake of entertainment to me at that point. Because how do you not see it? Because right now I'm about to get on a plane tomorrow and go to a hotel that nobody can tell me that I can't stay at. That's the work of King, Rustin, John Lewis, all of them. If I go sit in a restaurant right now and they don't want to serve me, I can sue them. That's the work of King, Rustin, John Lewis, all of them. So don't say that their work didn't make life easier for you, because it did. But what you can say is there's still a whole lot of work that needs to be done.
Let's talk about it, sis.
Yeah. So it's like, no, I don't feel like we need to say we're in a fight of equality. First of all, I don't even like that language. I don't need you to tell me I'm equal when I know I'm a superior being. Like, I don't need your stamp of approval for my equality. That's why I get mad when these people be talking about the Oscars so white and all of this. We got the NAACP Image Awards that happens every year that is lit. I have been nominated. It's one of the most amazing award shows I ever been to. But y'all don't get up there and boo-hoo, cry, and snot when you won an Image Award, but you get up there and boo-hoo, cry, and snot when you win an Oscar, because you still looking at the white man's gaze to confirm you. I told people from day one when I was a writer, they said, what award do you want? I said, I want an Image Award. If I get an Image Award, I'm Gucci. I don't want to be places where I'm tolerated. I want to be places where I'm celebrated. You should be just as thrilled to get an Image nomination as you are to get an Oscar. Matter of fact, you should be more thrilled, because the people who you do your work for are then celebrating you.
And especially when it comes from your own people. And speaking of your own people, right? We know that skin folks ain't all kin folks,
They
right?
ain't.
And just recently, out in South Carolina, the 6th District of South Carolina, you have the Congressman Clyburn, right? He had his annual fish fry, and they asked him about reparations. And when he heard the word reparation, it just changed his whole persona. You know what I mean? His whole energy was off. And he literally said, why y'all fucking with me? This is a man that has been in Congress for over 30 years. And like I said, he's in the 6th District of South Carolina. And we have a brother named, I think his name is Marcus or Marcel or something like that, that's running against him. Good brother. And I hope that brother win, because this is the 6th poorest district out of 435 districts. But what do you think when about individuals such as Clyburn, Maxine Waters, that have been in office for 30 years,
and their district still poor,
and their district still poor? What do you feel? How do you feel about that?
First of all, I'm a firm believer in term limits.
Okay.
Because there's no way you can stay in tune to the world that you're living in when you, and this is not about ageism, because I feel like our elders have a place and we should communicate with them. They have information that is imperative that we need to get from them. But how can you still be running a world that you're unaware of? Did you hear the hearings when they were having the hearings against Facebook? Most of them didn't even know how Facebook worked. They didn't even know how Facebook works. So this is why we need term limits. And you can't tell me that the stench of the world that these people came from is not still on them. If you are now in office and you were born in the 20s, 30s, or 40s, even 50s, that means you are a child of Jim Crow. Whether you are a black child of Jim Crow or you are a white child of Jim Crow, you are a child of Jim Crow still making the laws in a modern world. That doesn't make sense to me. You don't even know how the modern world functions. You can see that clearly clearly at the Facebook trials. You can see that clearly in how they're trying to regulate crypto. You can see that clearly in the way that they do not understand blockchain, that they do not understand social media. So it's like, to me, we need to have term limits. Nobody should be able to sit in office for 30, 40 years. And the thing about us, we have to stop having blind allegiances and alliances and emotional attachments to these people who are not doing us well. And we have to recognize that at some point, okay, auntie, you did whatever it is that you was going to do, but the gig is up.
The gig is up. Okay.
Get some fresh blood, some fresh eyes that understand the world that we're living in now, because they are still talking about equality. They're still using the same tricks and dips that they used in the 1950s and the 1960s, and ain't the world we living in no more.
Now, let me stop you right there, because there's going to be somebody that hears this interview, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to see that fire and that spirit in you, and they're going to say, well, what about you?
Right.
Why you don't run for office? What would you say to them?
I feel like I work better outside the system. I feel like I work better working outside the system, because I feel like, and I've talked to friends of mine who are politicians who are doing the work, but even when I talk to them, they talk to me deeply about the fight that they're in when they're in those spaces, especially my friends who are here at the state level. You know what I'm saying? They're outnumbered. They're outgunned by the old guard. So yeah, they're in there, they're mixing it up, and they might get one thing passed, but that's very difficult. But what I always try to tell people is, that's the other reason why I want people to know about all of the economic atrocities that have happened to us. And we talk a lot about reparations, but what we don't talk about is there is tons of government funds right now that are sitting there that we could be utilizing in the interim that we don't even know how to go get. The bulk of a politician's job is to manage budget. And they all have a budget. There's a city budget, there's a state budget, and then each individual has a budget for their for their district.
Yeah.
Yes, your county commissioner has a budget. They send money back every year because we don't know how to go get the money for urban development, for arts development. I just heard right now that I think in June, the Fulton County is about to release $1 million for art programs. We got to know how to go get that money for the improvement of our people. And the thing about it is, once you get it, and everybody, talking about, oh, I don't want the government's money, then they gonna have their hand on my neck. No, they not.
They just had the Resurgent grant, and this is the second extension because they wasn't able to give out all the money.
Yep.
And the sad part of it is a lot of people didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they do have a problem with using social media and getting the word out of there.
Right.
Now that people know, they released a lot of restrictions to make it so much easier for you, because a lot of this money is left over from the CARE Act.
Right.
And if it doesn't go out by the end of the fiscal year, it's going back to the government.
Exactly.
So you might as well get it, because guess what? If you don't get it, I'm going to get it.
You feel me?
I'm going to get it. But listen, we're going to come back, right? And we're going to talk about this big anniversary that's coming up.
Yes.
So I want y'all to stay tuned. This is Necessary Blackness Podcast. I am your host, Raheem Shabazz, and I am sitting with award-winning author and activist Kimberly Jones. So we're going to talk about this anniversary. She's going to tell us how you can get her book, and we're going to talk about some other things. Make sure y'all stay tuned. This is Raheem Shabazz, Necessary Blackness. Where you want to start at? Let's start about recently, right? We was talking about what's going on with you, and we was discussing about Tulsa from 1921.
Right.
Recently, the court said that they could go ahead and move forward with their lawsuit.
100 years later.
I think there's 2 survivors.
Three.
Oh, it's 3 survivors.
There's 3 survivors.
So they're going to see their day in court. This just goes to show you, black people, we should never give up. We better never give up. But, 107 years for justice, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want black people to use this as a celebratory moment, because just because they got their day in court doesn't mean they're going to win.
Right.
But it just goes to show you the depth of what we go to in order to survive, and that we don't give up, and that we have that fire spirit.
Right.
So there's another anniversary coming up, and I want you to discuss that. And I know you're going to be in Philly, so you're probably going to partake in what's going on at that event. So let our listeners know what's going on.
So even when you think about something like Tulsa, right, we still think that this stuff ended in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. But Friday will be the 37th anniversary of the bombings on Move in Philadelphia. So that's 1985. So like I'm 9 years old in 1985.
I'm 15.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like to think that something like that happens in our lifetime and people still don't know about it. Move was an organization, the Africas. Move was an organization that was self-sustained. They had these buildings in Philly and they were doing everything in-house. They were a completely self-sustained Black community and movement, and they have been in quite a few tussles with the Philadelphia police, and the Philadelphia police were allowed to drop bombs on their buildings and to destroy them. Over a dozen people were murdered. People were maimed. And then you had the leaders of Move who remains in jail
to this day.
Like some of them just got out within the last couple years. There's an amazing documentary on HBO. Shout out to my brother Mike Africa Jr., the child of Move. There's an amazing documentary that he did on HBO called 40 Years a Prisoner.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, very good documentary. And so this Friday is the 37th anniversary of the bombing of Move. And, you know, one of the people that people know the most about that is connected to that movement is Mumia Abu-Jamal,
absolutely,
who has been a political prisoner for all this time. And it's just like, that's one of the things, again, this is why, you know, people ask me why I focus so much on history and I really consider myself like a Black historian and trying to educate my people, because it's like, if you don't know about that, then you don't know we still need to be fighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we still need to be trying to get Mumia out of jail. You know what I mean? And we still need restitution for the members of Move. And we need not to forget that.
And what a lot of people don't understand, right? Like today, there's a big movement to live off grid, to create a self-sustaining community, right? To be vegan, to be natural. All this that we talk about.
Move was doing that.
Move was doing that in 1985. And
right.
You know what it was looked at? As nutcases.
Yep.
You don't eat meat.
Yep.
You don't drink. You don't smoke. You just gonna grow your
wearing natural hair.
And your natural hair as dreads.
Yep.
So you really have to think what it was for them then and what it's like for us now. Everything that they wanted to do, that they was prohibited from doing, we're doing that now. And those of us that enjoy the fruits of their labor for their imprisonment, their fighting, we need to raise their voice.
Yeah, on Friday, everybody needs to post about Move.
Yeah.
On Friday, everybody needs to post about Move and uplift that and post about the brother Mumia and his case and spread the petitions that are for him, the GoFundMes that are for him, all of that. I am going on Friday to teach a writing class. And I want to talk about that. I'm going Friday to teach a writing class at the Solutionary Center with the brother Maj Toure, who runs Black Guns Matter. But I've already, I already talked to Mike Africa Jr. I'm touching base with him. Him and I are going to commune on that day because I think it's kismet that, I'm in the city on the day of the anniversary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy though with the movement and everything that happened? Most of it stemmed from that racist police.
Yep.
That chief of police,
always
right?
the pig.
But you know what? It was also a black mayor, right?
Yeah.
That gave the go ahead to drop that bomb.
Oh, skin folks ain't kin
folks. Absolutely, absolutely. Now listen, right? I want people to know, man. You know what I mean? Because, people brag about their cars. People brag about their houses. You know what I've been doing lately? I've been bragging about my friends. You know what I mean? Like, yo, listen, my friends is dope. You know what they do? You know what I mean? And I thought I knew all that I was supposed to know about you. But, yo, you was just telling me something. I was like, wow, that's mind-blowing. So I want you to tell the people, man, like, they are honoring you all over the world. Tell them some of the things that you was telling me earlier. Yeah,
so in Ghent, Belgium, of all places, they built like a 50-foot wall in my honor. They did this amazing mural in my honor, and it says equality is beautiful, it's by a lake. And then in the corner of it, it has the last line of my speech. It says, they are lucky that what black people want is equality and not revenge. And then it has my name and the date. And it's like, of all places, Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah.
You said 50 feet. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is bigger than the wall that Donald Trump was trying to build. Okay, I just want y'all to know that it's bigger than the wall Donald Trump was trying to do. But go ahead, and also,
GQ Germany in 2020 made me their voice of the year. And then there is a mural. There's a mural in Oakland, California, that has a QR code on it, and that says you broke the contract. And when you hit the QR code, it plays my speech, and then The Root named me one of the 100 most influential African Americans, and the NAACP Image Awards. I got nominated. I didn't win for Outstanding Literary Work Youth and Teen. My books that I write for teenagers were put on the books that all young Georgians should read. I got nominated for Georgia Author of the Year. It was just like so much stuff is outpouring, and it's funny because when I think about that speech and the impact it had globally, I mean, I had black MPs from the UK calling to do Zoom calls with me, and then I was interviewed by the BBC. I've been interviewed by press everywhere from Israel to Russia. You know what I mean? So it had a global impact. And it's funny because that's when a lot of people discovered me. But, I've been doing the work long. Me and Gary Chambers talk about that all the time. He's like, they saw the Connie speech and thought that's when he popped up. And he's like, nah, I've been doing this a long time. But it's funny. I feel like that speech was so impactful because it was concise and it just got right to the point and the root of the problem, which is economics.
And it came from the heart.
And you had asked me earlier about people, who influenced me. One of my greatest, I was talking about two of my greatest influences. One was a woman named Reverend Willie T. Barrow, who was back in the day Jesse Jackson's right hand. She ran Push Rainbow Coalition, and I went to after school program at Push when I was little. And one of my 8th grade teachers, Miss Lumpkin, who I still talk to on Facebook, she realized I had ADHD, right? And so, of course, when you have ADHD, they just chalk it up. It's like, this kid is just bad because I couldn't sit still. But it's like my brain is moving fast all the time. Like I have all this energy and information that's flowing through me, and I wanted to talk, and I couldn't sit still, and I couldn't focus on the stuff they was teaching because it was boring to me. And I had this dope black female teacher who realized if I just let this kid talk for like an hour to get that energy out of her, then she'll be fine
for the rest of the day.
She'll be fine for the rest of the day. So that's what she would let me do. She would be like, because I would spend Saturdays. We had a library in Chicago that was a Black history library, and my mother used to leave me there on Saturday mornings when she would go shopping, and the librarians knew me. She would drop me there. I would learn all this stuff about Black history. The Black librarians would load the table up with books for me, and I would study all this stuff. So she would let me teach Black history for an hour in class, Miss Lumpkin. And when she realized I was a good orator, so she took this article that Reverend Willie T. Barrow, who had already been an influence in my life, had written in the Defender magazine. A lot of people don't know. I mean, the newspaper. A lot of people don't know about the Chicago Defender.
Oh, that's one of the longest and oldest black newspaper. Yeah,
exactly. So she had written this article in the Chicago Defender, and this will sound be familiar to people, and I still remember it because she put me in oratory competitions because she was like, this child is a good speaker, and so she gave me one of Reverend's articles and had me memorize it and compete. And it's the first time I won an oratory competition. And the opening of it, I was 12 years old, but I can still remember it. It was, we must never forget that economics was the reason the African came to America. We did not arrive on America's shores like other immigrants. The African came and did the work that others could or would not do. We came and made others rich. The slave was the backbone of the agricultural economy in the South and the textile industry in the North. And so those words, man, I'm about to cry. Those words stayed with me for over 30 years.
30 years. Yeah.
Those words stayed with me for over 30 years until on her behalf, I was able to give it to the world.
Yeah.
So don't tell me about ancestral work. Somebody implanted that in a 12-year-old me for such a time as this.
And you know what? Speaking of that, right, people don't understand, it takes for just one person to pour into you to have an impact that just will be life-changing, right? And sometimes people try to pour into you and it goes over your head. You might not agree with it, but everybody evolves. And that leads me to Kevin Samuels. He he was trying.
Woo, that's a hot topic right now.
He was trying to pour into young men, and he was trying to get the ladies straight, right? With some of the stuff he was saying. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I probably seen like 7 clips, right?
Right.
Before he made his transition. Afterwards, I watched a little bit more, and out of the 7, 5 of them I didn't agree with. So I wasn't really a fan. But looking in hindsight and knowing everything that happened, you know, Malcolm X, like I was telling you earlier, was Detroit Red before he came Malcolm X. This man was in his early 50s, and he could have evolved.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what
was on the other side.
What was on the other side for him. Right. But one thing that I'm not going to do is celebrate that man's death, and that's what I was trying to tell a lot of people.
I ain't celebrate nobody's death. Yeah. Well, maybe a few people.
Maybe a few people. But, you know, he didn't deserve that. But what is your thoughts?
At some point, we have to start having a dual narrative. And what I mean by that is, as foundational black people in this nation, we have been wronged.
Absolutely.
We know that a lot of our trauma is rooted in what was done to us. We know that what was done to us was systemically put in place. And we know that that has been taught through the generations. They got so good at it that they didn't even have to teach it to us anymore. They implanted it in us in such a way that we teach it to each other generation after generation. And so they need to reckon with that. And there needs to be a reconciliation with that. That's why we deserve reparations. That's why we deserve a lot of things. But simultaneously, at some point, we cannot wait on our oppressor to take the foot off of our neck, and we have to do some self-improvement. We have to do some insular work to improve our community, which is why I respect people like you, like Maj Touré, like King down in Albany with what he's doing with X for Boys, Randall King, what he's doing with the X for Boys and stuff like that, and Queen Yanaja Hawa, what she's doing with revolutionary healing and that kind of thing, because we do have to do some self-improvement. So I don't think that it's a disservice to the community to start having some harsh, real conversations in an adult way about what has broken the black family and why it hasn't been able to heal itself. And I think that having real conversations about what black men need to do and holding them accountable, and what black women need to do and holding them accountable is something that we have to do. It's funny because Red Pill posted something that I liked his post and talking about Kevin Samuels, and what he said was he could see, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he was saying is like he gets what the brother was trying to do, and that if you believe in reincarnation and solar returns, what he thinks is going to happen is that Kevin's going to return, and in his next time, that he's around, he's going to have a better understanding of getting done what he was trying to get done, what he was trying to do. Because at the end of the day, somebody got to step up and start healing our families. Absolutely. Somebody got to step up. And listen, me and you talked about this off the air. It ain't going to be me. I know people going to come in the comments, well, you got so much to say, you do it. That's not my ministry. You know what I mean? Like, it's a couple things that's free. One of them is staying in your own lane. I'm going to be the most successful doing what it is that I do. I'm an equity and access advocate. I believe that where they're beating us is with poverty. So I fight to get equity and access. I'm always talk about money. I ain't no hardcore black capitalist. It's not about that to me. It's not about me understanding capitalism and wealth. It's about me understanding economics as it is related to the marginalization of my people. And I know that if I'm broke, then you can sit in my neighborhood in a cop car on a weekend and know that you can run tags and you're going to find at least 12 people that don't have registration. Because if I'm working a $9-10 an hour job, I can afford my car, but I can't afford the registration. I can't afford the insurance. And the MARTA bus is going to stop running at a certain time. And if I don't get off at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I got to use this car to get back and work. So I know I'm an easy target. And that easy target is due to my impoverishment.
And then you're going to get a ticket, and they're going to make you pay for it, or they're going to put you on probation.
And that 15th Amendment, which is slavery by a new name, is going to come into effect, saying that I can't work anywhere for free unless it's within the criminal system. Yep. So for me, since I understand equity and access, and I've studied that, and I focus my energy on that. We talked about this. I used to be all over the place. If the cops killed somebody, I was down there. If a mother lost her baby, I was down there. If this happened, I was down there. But what I realized is that I was doing my community a disservice by not being specialized. Environmental activists only want to talk to you about the environment. That doesn't mean that they don't empathize with police brutality. What it means is they have specialized in something where they think they can make real meaningful impact, and they got to focus on that. And so for me, I focus on equity and access, but it's really difficult to have a conversation about rebuilding the Black standard of wealth in our community without talking about families, because wealth is built within families.
Generational wealth.
Generational wealth is built within families. And so one of the quickest ways to start healing that divide is healing the relationship between black men and black women, and healing the family and building more strong, stable children. And so we have to have those conversations. And it's like, whether you agree with his approach or not, I'm like you. I didn't agree with his approach to a lot of things. I feel like even though there may have been some truth in some things that he was saying, I felt like the delivery was not done in a way that was empowering those women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It came off as belittling. But that doesn't mean that those aren't lessons that they didn't need to learn. It doesn't mean that we have not set up a system of delusionalness that has allowed us to have a break in our families. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm a successful woman. And so in order for me to build on what it is that I've built, I have to have someone in the same mindset of myself.
Absolutely.
And I don't have any daughters. I'm a mother of 2 sons. I got 2 teenage boys. And I'm telling you, I'm teaching my boys right now how to choose, in honor of the conversation about Samuel Johnson, high value women.
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm building. I know what their father is building. Their father is a farmer. My ex is a emu farmer.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting thing for a Black man.
And you don't want your children, you know, you building this generational wealth and you doing all you can and all within your power for them, and they come home with a woman that got tattoos from her eyebrows all the way down.
Unless she doing that because she's a dope ass tattoo artist who owns 12 tattoo shops, then he could have her all day.
But you know, it comes a time where you know you want to meet that same energy.
Yes.
So you telling, you know, what I was gathering is that he's telling men we got to do better. He's telling women that they have to do better, and
we all have to do better. Yeah. Why are people so anti doing better? You know, as successful as I am, as successful as you are, always striving to do better. I went yesterday to go talk to my doctor so I could get on a better health plan because I know I need to lose weight. Yeah. To be honest with myself, to say, okay, Kim, you've let your health get away from you. Do something about it. And it's like, that's that same theory when you see what's going on with critical race theory, that truth equals diminishment, and it doesn't. No. It really doesn't.
It doesn't. You know what it is? The truth, when there's an opposing view to it, more times than not, those that oppose the view, it hurts them. It hurts them.
A hit dog gonna holler.
Yeah, and it hurts them to the point where a lot of them are disillusional, you know, and they will tell an outright lie. You know, a lie don't care who tell it. And we've seen this happen with like we was talking earlier with history, and why they don't want to teach it to you is because, you know, racism and white supremacy plays both sides of the coin. And we see that time and time and time again. So with that, I am going to say peace and Black power. It was a pleasure having you here.
Always good to see you.
And you, I could throw a rock and hit your house. You right across the street from me.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to come back. You know, and I'm definitely gonna take a picture. I'm gonna read this book. I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna let you know my thoughts and ideas.
Awesome.
And the good thing about it, I just finished a book 2 days ago, so I was due for a book. I always, once I finish one book, I always have another one on the ready to start reading.
And look, I got ADHD, so I write my books like my mind works. I write them quick and concise. So I always tell people reading my books are not an undertaking. They always short, they always fast, but they always loaded with information.
And you know what? I could read this in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you get them big books Like you seen Blueprint, the Black Power?
Yes.
It's
Oh,
like this.
Lord.
Yeah, I got that.
I don't even have the attention span. I got to read it in chunks.
Yeah. But all right, peace and Black Power family. We out of here. Raheem Shabazz, Necessary Blackness Podcast. And for those that you can't be just joining us because we already at the end. You missed it. You better hit that rewind button. You better put this in your save folder and continue to listen to this from time to time because there was a lot of jewels being dropped. I'm out. Peace.